So hello! On this channel we talk about independent spirituality and folk magic for free spirits. My name is Aster, and in today's video I have the pleasure of talking to you about a classic of Afro-American spirituality, like when it comes to books, that is, which is Jambalaya by Luisah Teish. Let me see, I think I'm gonna put it over here, a little bit far away, a little bit distant, but you can still kind of see it. So, when a book is out there for a very long time, which is the case with this book, it is a classic, I must mention. Books that have been written a long time ago, sometimes they tend to age poorly. I have mentioned this, like for example, about Communing with the Spirits by Martin Coleman. It aged a little bit, like some things in that book didn't age well, but my dear, that's so not the case with Jambalaya. This book has been out there for over 30 years, if I'm not mistaken, and it's just so amazing to see a book remaining relevant for such a long time, because not every author is able to pull that off. So I really need to tip my hat to Luisah Teish right now, because she was able to pull off something that many authors dream of but are unable to do. And her book, I believe that this is a revised and updated version of the text, and I have to say that it has accompanied the social evolutions and transformations when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to several things that we are discussing today. So the reader of the 21st century will not be disappointed when picking this book up. And when a book remains relevant for such a long period of time, this means that the contents of the book are definitely worth taking a look into. Like for example, if we think about fiction literary classics, those books are classics for a reason. It's not just because they're old, it's because the messages in the story are very powerful and impactful. Well, the same thing is happening here. That's why this book has been out there for such a long time and it's still being sold. And the thing that I liked the most about this book is how the author mixes her personal experiences as a woman of color and growing up into adulthood and womanhood with all of this Black background and the traditions around it, the spirituality around it. I find that Luisah tells her story in such a beautiful, almost poetic way, and she mixes it up with the spiritual background, the spiritual heritage, and the discovery of her spirituality and her path as a human being. She does all of that in a majestic, delightful way. Reading the text she wrote is it is a joy. It is a very easy to read text. It is very relatable. If you are a person of color, especially a woman of color, you will find this book extremely relatable. You will find yourself thinking about your family all the time and the things you experienced growing up and your hometown, and leaving home if you are far away from your place of origin as well. It is such a relatable text. It was really like reading about my family to an extent, especially my mother, and it felt so cozy. It felt like home, you know. I had such a good time reading this book. There is something in particular that I have to mention that really made me think about my mother. It's something on page 20 where there's somebody passing down a lecture about graveyard dirt, and that's just the kind of thing that my mother does. She warned me so much about cemeteries and how respectful I need to be, and don't go taking things out of the cemetery, that kind of thing. You know, when I read that passage on the book, I immediately thought about my mother. It was just something that my mother, she just does. Another thing that I found super relatable while reading this book was the struggle of being yourself and finding your path and finding the space for spirituality and art in your life while being part of a capitalist system. This is so crushing, right? It is so difficult to be who you are and have the time and the energy to be spiritually connected and artistically expressive in today's society. Like, we were not made to clock in and wear a uniform and wait for break time to go to the bathroom. We were made to be poetry, to speak to trees, to have visions in our dreams, to connect with our ancestry, to understand what we are made of. We were not made to be clogs in a system, but this is such a struggle for the working classes, for people who have to live paycheck after paycheck. So reading about the author's own experience in finding her path to prosperity was also very insightful and very relatable. And a chapter that definitely stood out to me was chapter 6, which is called Shrine of the Mother. In that chapter, Luisah teaches us several different ways to build an altar. An altar indoors, a small one, a big one, outdoor altars. That chapter, I found it super useful, and I am going to try and build one of the authors that she teaches in the chapter very soon. I think I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I just need to procure myself some white rum for that. And also throughout the book, she teaches, as the second title suggests, she teaches many little rituals and spells and things that you can do to protect yourself, to attract abundance and prosperity, to protect your house, to connect to your ancestry, connect to spirit. So this book has so many layers that are seamlessly, I think that's the word I'm looking for, sewn together, intertwined with the author's personal experience. And yeah, this is just a masterpiece in my opinion. I have to admit that I don't have a lot to say about this book other than positive things. As a woman of color myself, the book was very insightful. It was not only extremely relatable, it gave me many ideas of things that I'm going to try very soon. Right in front of me, right here, is the altar thing that I just said I'm gonna try to do it. Everything is set up. I really just need to get the white rum and I will be ready to go, and I'm gonna vlog the entire thing, so it's gonna be in the next vlog of the channel. I'm looking super forward to experiencing it and seeing how it's gonna be for me, what the results will be. And I definitely recommend this book to any person of color. I think there's a little bit of a thing that men might get the feeling that they cannot read the book because they're men and the book is kinda directed to women, but not really. I think that any person of color who would pick up this book would feel instantly connected and hooked, and just because the text and her experiences and everything, it is so relatable for people of color, and I would say that it is just impossible to not see yourself even just a little bit in what she's describing. I often get questions from viewers, etc., about how to actually start ancestral veneration, ancestral connection, and I usually refer my videos on the topic to those who ask me about it. By the way, it's gonna be up here in the cards. I have 2 videos talking about that, how to do ancestor work and ancestor work with a broken family history. Those videos are definitely going to be useful to you if you want to embark on the journey, but I would add to those recommendations this book, because there's a whole section of I would say that the entire book in itself lives and breathes ancestral connection, ancestry, history, tradition. So if you are a person of color wanting to get in touch with your ancestry, that book is definitely for you as well. Yeah, so Jambalaya is a must for any person of color who is trying to find their spiritual path. If you have Black ancestry, you are a Black person, doesn't matter your gender, how you identify, you will definitely find a lot of wisdom in here told by somebody who is like you, somebody who has had very similar experiences and who has found herself through spirituality. Something that really stood out to me as well in the book is how the author, like in the parts in which she describes how she struggled with money and making ends meet, and how spirit told her that she would only find prosperity when she would accept that her path was spiritual. That definitely hit home with me, because up until now I have been trying to fit in. I have been trying to be like everybody else and do what everybody else does, and it simply doesn't work for the long run. It simply doesn't work. So maybe I should do that too. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that this book is going to give you a lot of food for thought. So if you are a person of color, make sure to take a look. And by the way, if you liked what you've seen in this video, make sure to take a look at my Patreon page, because over there I also share a lot of rituals and spells from my personal craft, weekly divinations. I share a lot of details about my personal practice as well, and many other things for only 1 cup of coffee per month. And in the case that you don't really want to get another app, you can also become a channel member to have access to the same content that I post on Patreon. Also, there's going to be a link for this book in the description if you want to take a look and maybe buy it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, practice makes perfect. So let's get witching. Bye bye.